Today, you're going to learn why people in relationships cheat, what motivates a person to be unfaithful to their partner. Hi, it's Gabrielle, and for over 12 years, I've been a licensed professional counselor and relationship expert in private practice in Boulder, Colorado. And my practice is grounded in the science of what makes relationships work. In this video, we're going to look at what makes people look outside their committed, intimate relationship for sex and emotional connection. So whether you're the offending partner who had the affair, the victim of the betrayal, or even the affair partner, this video will give you important insights from evolutionary psychology to understand you or your partner's behavior. And it's going to help you begin to pick up the pieces in the aftermath of an affair. Okay, let's dive in. What percentage of people do you think have affairs? Findings vary depending on the study, but typically around 25% of men and 20% of women report having engaged in sexual activity with someone who is not their committed intimate partner, and that this sexual activity was harmful to their intimate relationship. But here's something really important. Note that this statistic does not include emotional affairs or other types of illicit physical extramarital affairs. It's much harder to gather that type of data, but we can assume that the number of people who engage in emotional and other types of romantic affairs is much, much higher. And that doesn't even include other kinds of betrayal that don't involve sex or emotional connection, like financial betrayal or major lying. But first, let's talk about sex differences when it comes to the motivation behind cheating. Broadly speaking, the research shows that men and women cheat for different reasons. So of the men who cheat, remember that 25%, it turns out that 70% of those men say that they do so because they're looking for sexual variety. Now, what about women? Women, on the contrary, say that they cheat because of feeling unhappy, both emotionally and sexually, in their primary relationship. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, of course, everyone who cheats is doing it because they're unhappy in their committed relationship. But guess what? That's actually not true. The idea that anyone who cheats does so because they're unhappy with their committed partner is a common fallacy in our society. This fallacy is reflected in the way our society has traditionally viewed the reason for a man having an affair, namely that he must be unfulfilled, often sexually, in his marriage, which caused him to look elsewhere. The female victim of the affair was often told by well-meaning female relatives that they needed to spice things up in the bedroom in order to hold their husband's attention and prevent him from straying from the marital bed. But it turns out that the connection between a person being unhappy in their intimate relationship and the likelihood that that person will cheat only applies to women. For men, there doesn't seem to be a connection between their reported level of happiness in their primary relationship and the likelihood that they'll be unfaithful. Men who are happy in their committed relationships are just as likely to get into affairs as those who are unhappy. Again, for men, it's all about sexual variety. Now, from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense that men would be motivated by the need for sexual variety to seek out multiple sexual partners. The more a man spreads his seed, the more likely his genes will get passed down to the next generation. Men don't bear the burden of 9 months of pregnancy, and so there really is no inherent cost to males to fertilizing multiple females. From the point of view of evolutionary fitness, which means how well a certain individual is able to reproduce in their environment, having sex with lots of females makes sense. It's hardwired into their brains that having sex with lots of women is just a good thing. But in general, they do not form emotional attachments to these partners. They tend to have sex with many different partners over time without really getting emotionally involved. Now, for women, the situation is very different. The reason why women cheat is much more complicated. Cheating is a high-stakes activity for women, and that's because a woman can risk losing her long-term partner and her reputation. And this could leave a woman without the resources that she needs to raise her children. It could leave her alone with children, unable to fend for herself due to issues like mobility, how to get around, and other factors that pregnancy, lactation, and child rearing bring. So why would women cheat? Is being unhappy in your primary relationship really enough to take on this level of risk? What's really going on here? When evolutionary psychologists researched this, they found two competing hypotheses. The first one is known as the dual mating strategy hypothesis. The idea here is that women cheat because they're trying to get resources from one partner, like money and, food and so on, and they're trying to get good genes from a different partner. So, for instance, maybe your primary partner has high status in society and they have lots of money, but maybe they're not that handsome, or they're a little too old, or not that physically strong or even smart. So a woman might attempt to get pregnant by a different man in order to increase the likelihood that her offspring will have some of these more desirable characteristics that this other man has. But there's a problem with the dual mating strategy hypothesis. There simply hasn't been enough evidence to really support it. Here's what researchers found that made the dual mating strategy hypothesis a no-go. Of the 20% of women who have affairs, 70% of them report falling in love with their affair partner. 70%. So women aren't just having casual sexual encounters with other men or sexual escapades that don't mean anything. By and large, women become emotionally entangled with their affair partners. From an evolutionary perspective, if these women were simply trying to access the good genes of these other men, it wouldn't make sense for them to become attached to their affair partners. But this attachment makes perfect sense in light of the second hypothesis, formed by evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss. And this hypothesis is known as mate switching. Mate switching is just what it sounds like. A woman wants to replace her current mate with a new one. Having an affair is one way that women attempt to do this. In the manosphere, this tendency of women is often referred to as hypergamy, and many men feel that women are just sort of constantly on the lookout for a bigger, faster, sexier, handsomer, richer kind of dude. The mate switching hypothesis states that women have affairs for 4 different reasons. Number 1, they're trying to get out of an existing relationship. Number 2, they're trying to trade in their mate for a different mate of higher value. Number 3, they're trying to see if they're desirable on the mating market. And number 4, they're looking for what is called mate insurance. So let's break each one of these things down. Number 1, trying to get out of an existing relationship. As we've said, from the point of view of evolution, losing a mate is extremely costly to women. If you're a woman, you might have children you need to care for, you may be pregnant, which affects your mobility, your ability to generate and find resources for yourself and your kids, as well as creating a whole host of other survival issues. Therefore, if you want to make a mate switch, moving directly from one relationship into the next would incur the least evolutionary cost to you. Number 2, trading in your mate for a different mate of higher value. Women tend to partner with mates who are of similar or higher mate value. So, for instance, in our culture, we often, will label people on a scale of 0 to 10. She's a 10, he's a 7, and so forth. So women will tend to partner with mates who are of a similar numerical value as they are, if you will, or a higher number. Men all over the world agree about which qualities are the most desirable in a mate. And with women, it's a little more complex. But for both sexes, there are desired qualities that are consistent across all of the world's cultures. And these are universally desired qualities like intelligence, being kind, and in good health. And then there are also desired qualities that are specific to each of the sexes. For instance, women prefer men with good earning capacity, and men prefer women with full lips and a good hip-to-waist ratio. We'll save that in-depth conversation about high value characteristics for another time. But the point here is that women may be more likely to want to find a mate of higher value, both in terms of a mate's access to resources and their good genes that they can pass on to that woman's children. Number 3, women are trying to see if they're desirable on the mating market. Some women become involved with other partners as a way to test the waters and potentially try to boost their self-esteem by seeing if other men besides their partner are attracted to them. If they find that this is the case, that might give them the motivation and the opportunity to seek a mate who is of higher mate value. Number 4, the woman is looking for mate insurance. Mate insurance is a term used in evolutionary psychology to describe the phenomenon of keeping other mates on the back burner, so to speak, in case your current relationship doesn't work out. Women seem to be particularly prone to this. Remember that we evolved in a highly volatile natural environment with many threats all around us, ranging from wild animals to natural disasters. And up until about 10,000 years ago, people only lived to be about 17 to 34 years old. For a woman, it wasn't at all unlikely that something could happen to your current mate, that they could get killed in a hunt or killed in an invasion from another tribe, and they could pass away, and then the woman would not have anyone to provide for her and her children. Their mate could stray from the parental responsibilities they have, begin investing in a different woman and have children with her, and start channeling all of their resources into those children instead of the woman's. Or her mate could become violent and dangerous. It therefore makes sense that nature would have selected for women who keep multiple potential mates around in the background in case the woman decides that she would be better off with a different mate, or the need for a new mate arises because you lost the one you have. And now today, with social media and all of the dating apps that are so readily available, it plays into this natural evolutionary tendency that women have to say, hey, I'd better keep a whole stable of guys at my disposal just in case something backfires. Now, questions around mate selection and why people cheat is a really important topic, and we're going to be exploring this in further videos from an evolutionary perspective. But for now, I'd like to hear from you. How have the issues around the search for sexual variety and the need for mate switching and upgrading to a higher mate played out in your life? And what do you see happening in society as a whole? Please leave me your comments below. I look forward to reading them and engaging in this discussion, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And if you benefited from what you learned in today's video, please remember to give this video a like right now and share it. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can also go to thepowercoupleformula.com for lots more information about how to build an amazing relationship, and powercoupleseducation.com to stay connected.